for joining me. Thank you. We are recording. Um, you can see some scratching behind me. First of all, happy Valentine's Day to each of you. I'm hoping so much that you find a way to make a wonderful evening for yourself and for the important people in your life tonight. I thank you for patience with me today. I didn't do any business presentations and so on, but we are here having our daily dose of Randy. This is one of my favorites. um, the fact that it's my favorite doesn't mean that it will be yours, but we shall see. The name of this discussion is called The Highway in the Sky. And this is a reflection on one of my life's experiences. One of the things that we have not done yet in this group is begin delivering what I call basic leadership content. The vast majority of what we have been delivering here has been business building content. It has been daily behavior content. That doesn't ever conflict with, but it's not the exact same thing as content that is designed to just help each person become a little bit better version of himself or herself. And I, of course, remind you all that whenever I have these kinds of discussions, I'm talking to me and I'm letting you listen. I'm not supposing that I'm all that and that I have all of the answers. So I'm talking to me. I'm reminding myself of important principles. And I'm hoping that as I remind myself of these important principles, that they may in fact become important to you as well. So this goes back to a time very, very early in my life. So early. In fact, and my friend Dave. This is how long it's been going on, Dave. I mean, that was me a long time ago. But this story is a long time before that. That's my little girl Haley, and Haley was, I think, 4 there. This story is before Haley was born, several years before she was born. This is in 1979. And in 1979, by that time, I had already begun my entrepreneurial experience. I, in fact, owned a weight loss company at that point in time. Let me take that back. I had not yet started my own weight loss company. I owned 130 some franchises for another weight loss company called Diet Center. And my franchises were scattered throughout the southeastern and southwestern United States, mostly eastern, starting in Texas and then moving east. And at that point in time, I already owned 2 airplanes. I'd had some successes early in my life. Story's been told about my first airplane when I was 20 years old. And by the time I was 22, when this story was told, I had 2 airplanes. And one of them was a turbocharged Cessna 210. I was in the habit of, or I'd made it a practice of going to visit my various franchises, which were in small communities mostly. And so most of them didn't have commercial air service into them. So I'd have to either fly into Dallas and then rent a car and drive to wherever, or I could fly myself. And so I was flying myself, flying a turbocharged Cessna 210. And this particular story, this life experience, started in Dallas. I had been in and around Texas. I was now returning back to Rexburg, Idaho, where I lived at the time. And as I made the flight, it would have to be broken up into 2 chunks to get from Dallas to Rexburg. In an airplane like I was flying, I would have to stop and buy fuel. And so I scheduled myself to stop and buy fuel at Cheyenne, Wyoming. This was happening the week after Thanksgiving in 1979. Things have changed a lot since then. Um, Climate change is a real thing. And in Wyoming in 1979, between Christmas or between Thanksgiving and December 1st, it was wintertime. And now sometimes it is and sometimes it's not, but it was wintertime, hardcore wintertime. So I landed in Cheyenne to buy fuel. And when I landed in Cheyenne to buy fuel, I it was just approaching dusk as I was coming in to land in Cheyenne. The sun was not setting yet, but it was low on the horizon, and it was coming. So that was kind of the environment. It was early winter or late fall. I was 22 years old at that point in time. I had an instrument rating meaning that I was legal to fly in the clouds. Now, the fact that I was legal to fly in the clouds did not necessarily mean it was smart to fly in the clouds, but it meant that I had been through the various trainings that I had to go through to have what was called an instrument rating. So I landed in Cheyenne, and when I landed in Cheyenne, I've got a couple of notes up here for my reference or yours. When I landed in Cheyenne, I now had to make my onward flight plan from Cheyenne to Idaho Falls, Idaho, and then on to Rexburg. And so up here, you'll see that first line says the Flight Service Center. So what I did first, I landed the airplane, requested fuel, and I went into the pilot's lounge, and I picked up the phone. I called the Flight Service Center, and what I asked for was a weather briefing along my route of flight, and I described the the path that I wanted to take. I was going to fly on Victor 21. Now, for those of you who are unaware of this, just as you drive on highways, and I'm willing to bet, Tommy, that you've been on Interstate 80 in the United States, and you've probably been on Interstate 15, and you've been on the 405 in all likelihood. Yeah, you're muted, but whatever.
That's
So,
okay. I'm on Route One right now.
okay, perfect. Okay, and so there are highways on the ground. There are also highways in the sky. A lot of people don't know that. When next you travel, and even if you're in the vicinity of an airport, if you're not flying, if you're driving, if you're in the vicinity of an airport, keep your eyes open for it's a round circular. I don't know how to describe it. It looks like a white witch's hat. Is what it looks like. It looks like a white witch's hat, and it's on the ground. It's white. It's circular, and then it has this cone that comes up out of the top of it. That's called a VOR. And the VOR emits a radio signal, which an airplane with proper equipment can track along. And so, in that compass dial, there are actually 365 separate radials that are coming out of that dial. And those radials will identify the highway in the sky. And so, what I asked for was a flight briefing, a weather briefing along Victor 21. Victor 21, like I 80, that was the name of the highway. And on Victor 21, my intention was to fly from Cheyenne, Wyoming to Idaho Falls, Idaho. And so I stopped and I asked Flight Service Center for a weather briefing along Victor 21 between Cheyenne, Wyoming and Idaho Falls, Idaho. And what I was told was that the weather along that briefing was MVFR. That stands for marginal VFR. VFR stands for visual flight rules. And so what that meant was that the weather along my route of flight would be marginal. We all know what marginal means, don't we? It means it's so-so. It's not great. It's marginal. It's not wonderful. Marginal VFR. Visual flight rules. Here's what's required for visual flight rules. It means that you must be able to be, if you're in a mountainous terrain, you must be able to be at least 1,000 feet above the rocks, above the mountains, and still be beneath or out of the clouds. That's the first requirement. VFR demands that you be able to track visually. It doesn't mean I have to be able to see the ground. I could be between two cloud decks and have solid undercast beneath me, a solid overcast above me. But if I was flying in the clear between the two, then I could still navigate visually. So that's what visual or VFR, visual flight rules. You can see it and you don't need to be navigating with instruments. Marginal VFR means, yeah, you can do it, but you probably have to bob and weave a little bit, probably have to dodge some clouds. Marginal VFR means that maybe there's an 85 or a 90% cloud deck below you or above you. Why is it marginal? Because if you're flying VFR, you can't fly through the clouds. And so you have to be able to pick the hole to go through to go up. And so I was told that the weather along my route of flight was marginal VFR. And because I was legal to execute a instrument flight plan, I knew how to do it, and it gave me security. A visual flight plan means you're kind of on your own. You can listen to the chatter that's going on, but there's not a controller that is assigned to your flight. If I file an instrument flight plan, then there is a controller specifically assigned to my flight to keep me posted on any changes in what's going on and to give me guidance and help as I need it, to help me return to the center line if I happen to wander off of it. And so I determined that what I would do is I would file an instrument flight plan because I didn't want to fly into dicey weather. So I'd file an instrument flight plan. And that required then that I learned some other things. And so that then required that I come down and take a look at. Here we can see these numbers down here. I don't know how well you can see all of my board, but down here that says CHY. That stands for Cheyenne. That's the indicator for the Cheyenne airport. And then it says 111.0. That's the frequency to which I would set my radios so that I could navigate away from or towards Cheyenne on any one of these 365 radials, it's called, that come off of that beacon. And that's what's establishing the pattern. That's what's establishing the highway for me to fly on. And so then this number stands for what? 8,000. So here it says that if I were to set my radio to 111.0, and then this particular one, it seems like is radial number 265, 265 degrees, heading mostly west, a little bit north. Then if I were at 8,000 feet, what that would guarantee me is that I was able to track away from Cheyenne until I hit this intersection. and that at this intersection, I would be able to reset my radio to 102.9 and track towards Laramie. And it would tell me the minimum altitude that I must be in order to be able to receive this beacon, to then receive this beacon, in order to have voice communications with the Air Route Traffic Control Center. And it would guarantee me in that instance that I was 2,000 feet above the rocks, 2,000 feet. If you're flying in Florida and it's all swamp, there's no mountains, then the MEA is only 1,000 feet above the swamp. But if you're in the mountains, it's 2,000 feet above the rocks. And that highway in the sky, just like a superhighway in California, it's not a single lane road. That highway in the sky is 2 miles wide. And so that's what the MEA, if I'm tracking on this radio at or above the MEA, I'll be able to track away from Cheyenne until I can receive Laramie, and it will tell me the altitude I must maintain to be able to have voice communications, radar tracking, and so on. So I filed my flight plan to track on Victor 21, the name of this highway, along this route of flight. And because it said that the MEA was 8,000 feet. I don't really like minimums. I like a little bit of space. And so I requested and was approved an initial altitude of 10,000 feet. So now, again, to reframe it, the sun has now gone down. I've got fuel in the airplane. It's approaching dark. It's winter. I'm 22 years old. The weather is marginal. This is basically a story of decisions and consequences. That's what it's really all about. Our life is a story of decisions and then the consequences that arise as a result of those decisions. And so the very first decision, I see my friend Dave just turned on his video. So my very first decision, Dave, was this. I'm 22. It's wintertime. I'm flying alone. The weather's marginal. The first decision is, should I maybe spend the night in Cheyenne or should I move on? I have to tell you all, I'm really bad at making the decision to do nothing. That is one of my primary weaknesses. Sometimes the very best thing we can do is nothing. Man, that's a hard lesson to get through my head. That one, it just bounces off my brain. Doing nothing fights against almost every instinct that I have. But the first decision was, do I simply stay stationary and wait for the situation to change so that it's more appropriate given my set of knowledge and skill, or do I go on? Decisions, choices, consequences. Well, I didn't want to be in Cheyenne, Wyoming that night in 1979. At that very point in time, my oldest child was Blake. Blake was a year and a half old. My youngest child, I'm sorry, Blake was almost two. My youngest child at that point, we had two, was Riley. Riley was 6 months old. I didn't want to be in Cheyenne. I wanted to be home. That's where I wanted to be. I wanted to go home. And so I will tell you that I didn't even really contemplate when I was told that the weather was marginal. I didn't even contemplate staying there. My decision was an automatic one. No, I'm moving on. And so I gained my clearance for departure, and 8,000 was the MEA. Requested and was given 10,000 feet. And what I was told that I could expect as I exited the airport and began my climb out, what I was told that I could expect was that above me, that I would be flying at 10,000 feet, and that below me, 1,000 or 2 feet below me, there would be a scattered cloud deck, a cloud here, a lot of open spaces, and a scattered cloud deck. And that 3,000 feet above me, there would be a broken cloud deck. Broken meaning that it's mostly like a carpet, but there's a hole in the rug every once in a while. So a broken cloud deck above me, a scattered cloud deck below me, but that I would be in the clear at 10,000 feet on this route of flight. That's what I bargained for. That's what I said yes to. And I took off. Now, almost immediately, I mean, almost immediately, upon getting airborne and establishing the route, almost immediately, I mean, we're talking about within 30 miles. And by the way, my airplane would fly about 200 miles per hour. And the distances between each of these checkpoints, each of these communities, as I'm basically transitioning from the eastern part of Wyoming to the western part of Wyoming. And of course, you folks who've been around the western part of the United States at all know that Wyoming on the east part is a high plateau, high elevation, but not steep mountains. The further you move west, then that plateau gets higher and higher and higher, ultimately giving way to what? The Grand Teton Range, some of the most striking mountains in North America. And so that was what was along this route of flight between me and my intended destination of Rexburg, Idaho. Almost immediately, as I got to this first intersection, so I track away from Cheyenne just for 30 miles. By the time I've tracked away from Cheyenne for 30 miles, the weather is not what I was told to expect. It was not a broken deck above me and a scattered deck below me. It was a broken deck below me with only a hole or two, only a gap or two, and it was a solid overcast above me. And so immediately it wasn't what I had anticipated. And that, by the way, was not an error of the Flight Service Center. Weather conditions changed. There was not a lot of traffic that day, and there were not a lot of pilot reports on my route of flight flying at those elevations. So they gave me the best information they had at that time. But it turns out the information was not entirely accurate. And so now, as I approach Laramie, what have I got? Another decision. What shall I do? The weather's not what I was told it would be. In fact, it's quite a bit different. And I have to admit that even at that first instance, remember, I was 22 years old and I had quite a few flight hours, real time flight hours at that point for such a young pilot. I had, for a season, hired a flight instructor to fly right seat with me. I didn't, I was past that then, but I had hired a flight instructor to fly right seat so that if we came into situations where I didn't feel capable, I could simply hand the pilot in command to him. But I didn't, so I was not incredibly ill prepared, but I wasn't as prepared as I needed to be. I discovered that as time went on. And so now, what shall I do? I approach Laramie. And as I approach Laramie, the weather's not what I was told it would be. And so, what are my choices? Well, I could land in Laramie. I could do that. There was an instrument approach there. And I knew that the cloud deck was quite a bit above the ground. I could land in Laramie. I could turn around and go back to Cheyenne because the weather was better behind me and worse in front of me. Or I could move on to Rollins. Decisions, choices, and consequences. I'm not very good at being knocked off of my path. And I have to realize that a strength can masquerade as a weakness, or a weakness can masquerade as a strength. The difficulty of knocking me off of my path, sometimes that translates into advantage. The difficulty for me to recognize the path I'm on is not right. That can be a tremendous disadvantage. And my stubbornness, my refusal to acknowledge sometimes as soon as I can be can create quite a different outcome. Well, I have to say that I was already feeling just a tiny bit unsettled, not a lot. But remember, I'm 22. I'm flying into what I know is a deteriorating weather situation in front of me. I know that I knew that I was at the edge of my comfort capability and was probably operating just on the other side of it, probably about where I was. And one of the reasons that I've taught so long is that it's really important for me to not get outside of my comfort zone. What I must do instead is expand my comfort zone into the activity that's required for success. Because if I get out of my comfort zone, what will I be? I will be uncomfortable. And when I'm uncomfortable, I don't make my best choices. That's the truth. Um, Self knowledge is important. It's important for each of us to know and understand when do we make good choices, when do we make bad choices, what are the predictable things, when we can see a pattern. If I allow this to occur, then I make decisions that I'm not proud of later. If I allow this to occur, then I make decisions that head me into the rocks instead of where I want to go. At any rate, I was a tiny bit unsettled, but I was certainly no place close to turning around and going back to Cheyenne. I had no desire whatsoever to spend the night in Laramie, and so I didn't communicate any of those thoughts, fears, and concerns. And by the way, a lot of lessons here, and I'm talking to me and I'm letting you listen. I didn't communicate. I let it rattle around in my brain. If I'm asking myself for advice, the advice I'm going to get is seldom going to be right. I need to ask someone else for advice. You know who I could have asked for advice? The Air Route Traffic Control Center. That's who I could have asked for advice. I could have asked the specific controller that was assigned to my flight. I could have asked for advice. But why did I not? Oh, because that silly thing about Randy. I'm talking on the same frequencies that Delta pilots, Delta captains are talking on, United captains are talking on. Pride, ego, arrogance. Holy God, are these enemies of life and existence for me? I didn't want to sound foolish, and I sure didn't want to sound afraid. Heavens, no. No, this is 6'2" Romeo out. And I'm like one of those big guys. So I didn't even really consider the choices of landing here or of going backwards. I simply redialed my radios to now it was one, God, it was 243, 243 degrees to track this radio away from Laramie and towards Rollins. But oh, look at this. Back here, the MEA was 8,000 feet. Here, the MEA is suddenly 10,000 feet. How? Well, because it's a high plateau. The ground is getting higher. Well, if the ground is getting higher, and now we're beginning to see the first mountains around, not just the elevated plateau. So now I've got to be at 10,000 feet in order to track away from Laramie and to track towards Rollins, to be 2,000 feet above the rocks, to be able to have voice communications, data communications. And so I inched up to 10,000 feet, but what I requested first was approved 10,000. And so I inched up to 10,000 feet. Excuse me, I got my numbers wrong. I started at 10 because I didn't want to be at the MEA. Here, the MEA went to 10. And so I asked for and was given 12. And what did I describe a moment ago? The weather is not what I had been told it would be. Below me, it was a broken deck instead of a scattered deck. And above me, it was a solid overcast instead of a break where there'd be holes, gaps. It wasn't what it was supposed to be. And as I went higher, I got to 12,000 feet. Guess what I got to? The bottom of the cloud deck. And so now I'm sometimes in, sometimes out, sometimes in, sometimes out. And most of you have flown before on a commercial flight, if not a private one, and you've flown into clouds, and it feels somewhat heavenly. The clouds are billowing around as you enter them, and it's beautiful and it's smooth and it's a surreal experience. Sometimes you fly into a cloud deck and it's bangity 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 bang. Those are the clouds where there's convective activity, where air currents are moving up and down, convective activity, mostly pushing higher, and that's what creates that bangity 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 bang. And so now let's spin it forward. Now I'm at 12,000 feet, tracking between Laramie and Rollins. I'm suddenly in and out of the clouds. It's bang, 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 bang. And it's dark, dark outside. And so as I travel along, once again, remember going between 200 and 210 miles an hour, this is about 55 miles. These decisions and choices and consequences are stacking up fast, not a long time in between. I mean, it feels like I've just barely made one decision. I'm just beginning to respond and to react to the consequences of that decision. I've got to make the next decision. And so as I approach Rollins, and I've flown this route multiple times before. It's not brand new to me. And I knew that as I continued moving west, that the MEA would continue going higher. I was okay with that. Why was I okay with that? Because I didn't like being in and out of the bases of these clouds. And when I knew the MEA was getting higher, I thought I will just request 2,000 foot higher assigned altitude than the MEA with the hopes that I could now get on top of that cloud deck because I'm bouncing along in the bottoms. It's not a smooth, beautiful one. It's bangity, 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 bang. It's dark outside. It's kind of disquieting. I acknowledge that by now I've become quite a bit less comfortable. I wouldn't yet let the word fear inch into the dialogue, but that was what was right around the corner. And now, when I arrive at Rollins, I once again have to make a decision, a series of decisions. Do I go backwards, knowing very well that the clouds are lower behind me, that the weather is better behind me, that all indications are that the weather is getting worse in front of me? And um, at that point, I will say that I at least considered, I recall, I at least considered, I glanced at what are called the approach plates to see what kind of an instrument landing system might exist at Rollins. And I at least considered, it did enter my mind, you know what, Randy? It might be that it's a pretty good idea for you to rethink this whole thing. But that bounced into my brain for an instant. That was all. I wanted to go home. I didn't want to be in Rollins. I didn't want to be in Laramie. And I'll tell you what, I am just not good at going backwards. That will probably, for as long as I live on this planet, probably be a weak spot for me. I'm really good at trying to find my way forward, over, around, under, through obstacles. I am really bad at acknowledging that I'm beating my head against a wall that cannot be moved. experienced a little bit of that over the course of the last couple of years. Not every lesson gets learned once and for all and forever. But I have things like this to reflect upon so that I can see how to make the better choice, how to make correct choices right now today. And oftentimes I'm able to make a better choice today by reflecting upon decisions that I've made in the past and by going all the way back to the foundational experiences that resulted in the baseline decision making processes that I have. And by the way, that you have too. Some series of life's experiences have created the baseline decision making that we have. We are automatically more cautious or we are automatically more adventuresome. These are not simply personality types. These are born of experiences. And those experiences add up to the knowledge bank that we then react to. And we then have to take those experiences and multiply, divide, amplify, decorate with our character and with our character weaknesses and our character strengths. So as we go along here, all of that stuff's going on in the background, and I'm, of course, paying no attention to it. I requested 14,000 feet. And when I requested 14,000 feet, one of the reasons that I at least had a moment's pause was because remember the situation. I had the hope of breaking out of the clouds. I didn't want to be in the bumpity, bumpity, bumpity bump solid IFR. Solid IFR meaning what? Meaning I can just see my wingtips out there. That's it. I can't see in front of me. I'm dog solidly in what you'd think of as a cloud, as a fog bank if you're on the ground. Up there, it's in a cloud. My visual reference is my instruments in front of me. That is the sum total size of it. And so when I arrived at this point, now more decisions to be made. But here was the big one. I was flying a turbocharged aircraft, but it was turbocharged yet not pressurized. Not pressurized, meaning that the cabin would not react to the change in altitude and the thinning of the air as we go higher. A non pressurized cabin would require that you have oxygen on board, which I did. And the rule is this that you can fly for 30 minutes at 13.5. At 31 minutes at 13,500 feet, it is the law that one put on an oxygen mask for the next 30 minutes. Because if we allow our brain to get too depleted of oxygen and at 13,500 feet, then the human brain will be sharp and alert for 30 minutes. 30 minutes in, it starts experiencing oxygen deprivation and we start making poor decisions.
Question.
If
Randy,
yes,
how was your equilibrium? Could you get a horizon, or was up and down was up? How was that?
only on instruments. If you were to look at an instrument deck of an airplane like that, it has an attitude indicator, and that attitude indicator is what will tell you. And you cannot tell, by the way, when you're flying in the clouds and you're brand new to it, you cannot tell if your airplane is like this or like this.
You had
Oh,
no sense of
no,
horizontal.
none. No sense of horizontal, no sense of up and down.
Got it.
That is all dependent upon the instruments. It is completely instrument guided. You cannot feel it. Once you're solidly in the clouds, you lose equilibrium, you lose the visual reference, and now you have no way, you cannot identify up from down, right from left, this and this. It is completely dependent upon instruments. And so I'm solidly in the instruments. And now I'm going to go to 14,000 feet. And so at 14,000 feet, then we know that every half an hour, I've got to pop on oxygen. And most of you have probably not had an oxygen mask on in an airplane. Some of you have probably been scuba diving and you've experienced something somewhat similar because you have a tank on your back. And it's sort of like an iron lung, isn't it? You can hear every breath. You can hear every breath. I mean, it amplifies it. It brings into, it makes so present the very fact of breathing. And just making the very fact of breathing so present until one has done it a
It
lot.
is dramatic.
It is dramatic. It is. It is dramatic. That's a good way to explain it. And so now I've got the iron lung going, 30 minutes. But remember, I requested 14,000 feet, not 13.5. And so at 14,000 feet, I have to always have oxygen on. Now, another thing I want you to reflect upon when you've been on an airliner, and the flight attendant will say, in the unlikely event the cabin loses pressurization, an oxygen mask will fall from the ceiling. Make sure you put yours on first. And then they will say that oxygen is flowing, though the mask does not inflate. You guys remember that? You do, don't you? If you've ever been on an airplane, you've heard them say that. Oxygen is flowing, though the mask does not inflate. That's really easy to believe and to trust when you're in the clear skies and a flight attendant is saying that and it's all hypothetical. When all of a sudden the oxygen mask is on your face and you know that if you're not getting oxygen, that 30 minutes from now, your brain will no longer think properly and you'll probably crash. Then at that point in time, the very fact of that stinking oxygen mask not inflating, I could not put it down. I'm telling you, when something gets into my head, trying to get it out of my head, if something's not right, and now what is that? That is fear. That stinking oxygen mask not inflating. Well, of course it's not. How many times have I been told, Randy, the oxygen mask won't inflate? I cannot keep my hand from pinching that stinking mask and seeing it fills up like a balloon. I mean, my tension is every place that it needs to be and should be at that moment, except it needs to be except where it should be. Because now the great enemy of my entire life has made the scene, that enemy being fear. Now, suddenly, holy God, what exactly have I got myself in? I get to 14,000 feet. I'm still solid IFR. I can't see. I mean, the edge of the wingtips, that is it. Completely dependent upon gauges. Now I'm sucking oxygen. I cannot stop my mind from racing off the fact the bag's not inflating. There's no oxygen here. You're going to get hypoxia. Are the decisions you're making right now born of fact, or are they born of fallacy because you're oxygen deprived? All these thoughts rattling in my brain as I then reach this next intersection. And so, once again, decisions, choices, consequences. I can land at Rock Springs. I can return, go backwards to Rollins. I can go where the MEA is getting lower. I can get down. But no, that's not my deal. My deal is that I looked at the future path, and really and truly, and no kidding, what I'm thinking to myself is, it's only going to take another hour, Randy. 1 hour. You can get through this. An hour from now, you'll be on the other side of the front range. It's only going to take an hour. Suck it up. Get it right. Calm down. Stop the fear. Make good choices. I was aware at that point in time that I was not making good choices. But what I must do at every step of my life, I must behave in such a way that I stay in front of fear. I have to stay in front of fear, because if I get into fear, I will make bad decisions. I've got a life experience of that. And that, by the way, is why over the course of the last several days, I described the fact we've had a little bit of a health scare in our family. When that fear is there, I have to monitor myself so carefully, because if I am acting in fear, I'm going to look back at the decisions that I made with regret in the future. That is true almost all the time. And so, what I have to do, to any extent possible, I have to find a way to avoid the occurrence, to avoid the occasion of fear. And yet, my life pattern is that because I'm an aggressive risk taker, I constantly push myself into places where fear exists. So I've had to learn how to monitor, how to not think that because that's the way it's always been, that's the way that it should be, to change patterns, to change behaviors based upon life's experience. That's why I study these life's experiences of my own so much. And so now I'm approaching Rock Springs. And as I approach Rock Springs, once again, a number of decisions, and now pretty important decisions. You can see, for any of you who know the western part of Wyoming, that now the MEA going forward is 15,000 feet. And um, I'm still solid in the cloud deck at 14. 15 doesn't look too bad to me, because maybe that'll punch me out of the clouds on top, and that would make it a little bit less of this dicey situation I'm in. And so I did for a second contemplate shooting the approach. It's called at Rock Springs, but I didn't want to be in Rock Springs. I wanted to be home. And so, after just a moment's consideration, I redialed my radios to track away from Rock Springs to track towards Big Piney. The MEA was 15,000 feet, and so I requested 16,000 feet because I like to be 1,000 above. I was approved to go to 16,000 feet, and I began the ascent. Now, you'll notice between Rock Springs, and I wait and see my chart here. And by the way, what I've drawn here is a very, very poor example of what's called a low altitude en route chart. This is what a low altitude en route chart looks like. And along the way, I've got an individual controller that is assigned to me. That individual controller is my first source of support. And then I've got the overarching air route traffic control system. And so as I'm flying along this first half of the trip, or the first 2/3, that it is Denver Center. And about right here, Denver Center hands you over to Salt Lake Center. And so as I'm traveling between Rock Springs and Big Piney, I've requested and been given 16,000 feet. I'm now solid IFR, bangity, 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 bang still. It's pitch black outside. And every time the strobe lights flash on either end of the wing, now what am I seeing? Every time the strobe light flashes, snow in the cloud. I'm solid in the cloud. Every time the stinking strobe flashes, there's snow everywhere. And I am traveling between here and here. I get to 16,000 feet and I'm still not breaking out. Still not breaking out. I don't know how much further up I'd have to go to break out. And as I travel, this, by the way, is a very short period of time between Rock Springs and Big Piney. We're talking about 17, 18 minutes. And 17 or 18 minutes, that can feel like a long time in some environments. Up there in that environment right then, those 17 minutes, they went zooming through, I mean, like time through the hourglass. I'll tell you what, those grains of sand were falling fast as I had to make the next decision, the next decision, the next decision. When I arrived, as I'm traveling between these two, something started to be wrong. Something was wrong. And I knew something was wrong, but I couldn't quantify it. Something's wrong, something's wrong, something's wrong, something's wrong. Okay. When I'm feeling like something's wrong, then where does my mind go at that point in time? Randy, the oxygen mask is not filling up. And so now your brain is being deprived of oxygen. And so you're dreaming up something's wrong. I mean, just imagine yourself up there. And that's where my head is going. It's all over the lot. It is every single place that it should be, every single place except where it should be. Flying the airplane and doing that was required to get me from here to there. But something's wrong, something's wrong, something's wrong. And I'm trying to convince myself that nothing's wrong. It's because, well, what's wrong is the oxygen mask. That's what's wrong. And so I'm not thinking clearly. As I inched along, I tell you what it felt like. I was raised in a farming community in Idaho, and I know what it's like to have 300 or 400 or 500 pounds of potatoes in the trunk of a car. And and I think of it, I think of when I was young, and I might have been doing that. I'm working on a farm, so I'm 14, 15 years old. That means that it's in like 1970 or 71. And so think of at that point in time, I'd have been driving a 1964 Chev Bel Air that has almost no shocks. And so think of the back end of the Chev loaded down with potatoes. And so the headlights are pointing halfway up, and I'm driving like this. And well, that's kind of what my airplane was feeling like. Something is wrong. It's not your head, Randy. Something is wrong. In fact, now I've got the accelerator, I've got the gas pushed all the way to the firewall. It's all the way. I've trimmed the airplane as efficiently as I can. And I still feel like I'm going uphill, and I'm not. It's just the airplane. Something is wrong. The weight and balance is all off. Something's wrong. What is wrong? And then suddenly I knew immediately what was wrong. I knew it in a second. Took out my flashlight and I looked out along the leading edge of the wing. And you know what I saw? Ice. That's what was wrong. Now, how did that happen? In my pre flight briefing, way back here, Flight Service Center told me what the icing envelope was along that route of flight during those hours that I would be flying. The icing envelope. There is a 7-degree band of temperatures, and that's all. There's a 7-degree band of temperatures from 4 degrees above freezing to 3 degrees below freezing. In that 7-degree band, that's where ice will accumulate on an aircraft's wings. If it's warmer than that, ice will not form. If it's colder than that, ice will not form. There is a 7-degree band. There is also something called a standard degree of variation. And that standard degree of variation simply means this: it means that standard atmospheric conditions, standard. If we climb 3,000 feet up, if we climb 1,000 feet up, we will lose 3 degrees. Climb one more 1,000 feet up, we will lose 3 degrees. Climb one more 1,000 feet up, we will lose 3 degrees. The icing envelope then is contained of a few thousand feet. That's what it's contained of. And so if an airplane that does not have de-icing equipment, my airplane did not have de-icing equipment. When you're flying in an airliner or a big commercial craft of any kind, you look out along the leading edge of the wing. Quite frequently, the leading edge has black on it. Well, that is rubber. And though you can't see it, those are called pneumatic boots. And multiple times every second, there's a tiny little pulse that happens in that boot. And that tiny pulse, little tiny pulse, if a speck of ice happens to adhere, it just pops it off. And so the first line of defense against accumulating ice on an airplane's wings are called pneumatic boots. Now, in an aircraft that is certified for flight into known icing, then there must be multiple methods of ice removal or ice avoidance. One method is the pneumatic boots. The other way is the leading edge of all aircraft that are certified for flight into known ice will have heat on the leading edge of the wing. And so, in addition to the pneumatic boots, then there's system redundancy. Besides the pulsing, there is heat. And so that heat will eliminate the ice. You'll also see on an airliner that there is a hot plate on the windshield, and that guarantees that the pilot will be able to see out, that it won't be iced up. the pitot tubes, the little tubes that you'll see sticking out of the airplanes that are dictating. That's how they're measuring the airflow and so on. The pitot tubes will be heated in an airplane that is certified for flight into known ice. Well, my airplane had zero de-icing equipment. If you're flying an airplane that has no de-icing equipment, the only solution is to stay out of the ice. You don't fly into it, because if you happen to accumulate some, you cannot break it off. And so I was taught what the icing envelope would be. I didn't pay any attention to it. Why? I didn't pay any attention because it was supposed to be marginal VFR. It was never my intention to be in the clouds. Well, I learned a lesson that day, and the lesson was that every future flight, I knew exactly where the icing envelope was, because who knows if that pre-flight report would be accurate. But at that point in time, I had not reached that level of maturity as a pilot, and so I kind of ignored the icing envelope because I was going to be above one deck and below one deck. I was going to be in the clear. Who cares? Well, now I cared, because I'm at 16,000 feet and I'm picking up ice, and I've got to get 3,000 feet higher to get out of the ice, or I've got to get 3,000 feet lower. There's rocks 3,000 feet lower, so that's not one of my choices. My choice is to get 3,000 feet higher so that I can get above the icing envelope. So as I track between Rock Springs and Big Piney, I requested 19,000 feet so that I could get out of the icing envelope, whether or not I got out of the clouds. And my individual controller approved that ascent. And so I then attempted that ascent. But guess what? The smooth flow of air over the wings had already been damaged enough as a result of that ice on the leading edge that I could not climb. Now, when I talk about ice on the wings, let me help you understand this. It is not like an ice cube. It's not a sheet of ice. Go and open your freezer. And when you open your freezer, you'll find there what? A whole bunch of little specks of frost, or so it would seem. That's the kind of ice that will appear on an airplane's wings. It's called rime ice, little tiny specks, a little speck of frost. And it's not the weight that brings down an airplane. It is, you can have a quarter of an inch of those ice particles along the leading edge of a wing, and that completely disrupts the smooth flow, which means there's no more lift. When airplanes crash in the ice, they might have had a sum total of 6 ounces of ice on that wing, on the entire wing. It simply disrupted the flow of air and therefore eliminated lift, and that's what brings the airplane down. And so as I tried to climb higher to get out of the icing envelope, which I'd never anticipated being in the clouds, I was unable to get higher. It already damaged the performance of the wing. And so I asked for it, was approved 19,000 feet. I only got to about 16,300. And it stopped going higher, though I had trimmed the airplane. I was firewalled on the throttle, trimmed the airplane for maximum performance, and I could not go higher. And so now here I am, dead in the heart of the icing envelope. I mean, right dead in the heart of it. I can't go down because there's rocks down there, and I can't go up because I've already damaged the capability of the wing to provide the lift. And so now I've got more decisions, don't I? Wow, I've got big decisions to make now. Do I return to Rock Springs? Rock Springs has what is called a VOR instrument approach. Remember, the VOR is the same device that is creating the highway. A VOR approach is a somewhat complicated approach, and in a perfect environment, when I'm just wearing a hood, for example, and I'm not really in the clouds, I could execute a VOR approach. If I had a flight instructor sitting beside me who could take control, then of course I could execute a VOR approach. But now the great enemy of my life, fear, has got me. Fear's got me. I still don't know for sure if my oxygen mask is inflating or not. I'm still bounce in the clouds. It's pitch black. Every time the strobe lights flash, all I'm seeing is snow. My airplane will not go higher. And I know that very shortly after an airplane will no longer go higher, it will start going lower. That's just the way that it is. And so I now have to make a decision. Do I return to Rock Springs and shoot a VOR approach? Do I go on to Big Piney? Now, going on to Big Piney, this was an interesting choice that I'd need to make. Why? Because Big Piney has, I forgot a bit of a cold. Big Piney has the least sophisticated instrument approach of all. It's called a non-directional beacon. And when you are flying on an airliner and you are on final approach, and suddenly it feels like the plane is literally on the ground and it breaks out of the clouds, and there's the ground right there, and you're dead over the center of the center line. The airliner, and by the way, the pilot's not flying that, a slaved landing system is executing that approach. But it'll break out at 200 feet above the ground directly and immediately over the center line of the runway. That's what it will do. A non-directional beacon approach, on the other hand, will get you down to about 2,000 feet above the ground within 5 miles of the airport. That's what an NDB approach will do. The ILS is unbelievably easy to execute in comparison. The less sophisticated approach takes way more knowledge and skill. And I knew very well at that moment in time that the likelihood of me successfully executing an NDB approach was not very great. Now I'll come back around to some irrational thinking that was going on at that point in time. I'll come back to that in a couple of moments. And so my choices were to return to Rollins and return to Rock Springs and execute a VOR approach, which a little bit uncomfortable doing, but capable, to go on to Big Piney and execute an NDB approach, which I knew very well I could not do at that moment in time. So those were my choices. Do I go on? Do I turn back? I'm just really, really bad at turning back. I'm really bad at it. I've tried my whole life to get better at it, but I'm really bad. Once I set my course and I'm heading a certain direction, the truth is that I'm more likely to accelerate in the wrong direction for a while before I am to acknowledge that it's an incorrect direction, trying to go back the other way. Worked a long time to change that behavior, to change that pattern, that reaction to circumstances. Nevertheless, I decided to go forward. And so now I've requested 19,000 feet. We know that I only got as high as 16,300 feet. And now gradually the airplane starts going lower, not higher, as I begin to approach Big Piney. Now, that was not a concern to the controllers because they assumed that I was going to execute an approach at Big Piney. I had still not told them the truth. That a complete insanity, folks. Had I acknowledged to the air route traffic controllers that I was a relatively younger, inexperienced pilot, that I had ice on the leading edge of my wings, that I had no de-icing equipment, there would have immediately gone to DEFCON 5, and there would have been as though there was somebody sitting beside me, guiding me through the next series of decisions. But pride, ego, fear, those things had me in their grasp. And I did not want to acknowledge to the air traffic controller that I was in that situation. Insane, completely crazy to not reach out for help when help was so abundantly available. But instead of that, I simply resolutely reset my instruments to fly on to Big Piney. And when I got to Big Piney, you'll see that the MEA beyond Big Piney is 16,000 feet. And I've now fallen below 16,000 feet. And so as I begin the exit away from Big Piney towards Jackson, Air Route Traffic Control Center said 6162 Romeo, please return to the MEA and advise intentions on continuation of flight to Jackson, Idaho Falls. And at that point in time, I said, yes, I'm continuing on to Idaho Falls, and no problem, I'll return to the MEA, knowing very well that I could not. It was not possible for me. There was nothing I could do to return to the MEA. And remember that at the minimum en route altitude, what that guarantees is 2,000 feet above the clouds, and it guarantees voice communications, and it guarantees an ability to track away from this beacon towards this beacon. Really obvious looking back what the correct decisions were. It wasn't as obvious to me that day at that moment. And as I moved between Big Piney and Jackson, gradually falling lower and lower beneath the MEA, I then made a decision that I would execute the ILS, the instrument landing system, the instrument landing approach at Jackson. Now, remember the dates of this experience? This was the week after Thanksgiving in 1979. If you were to do a quick Google search of those dates, you would find out that at that point in time, it was during the Jimmy Carter presidency, and there was an air route traffic controllers strike. Some of you will remember that. There was something called the General Aviation Reservation System at that point in time. You had to make in advance reservations to do an instrument landing. You had to make reservations in advance to have an ILS clearance and I didn't have any of those things. And so I was already outside of the rules when I asked if I could execute the approach at Jackson. And at that point in time, it was brought to my attention that as a result of the air route traffic controller strike, that there was no manned tower at Jackson at that point in time. There was nobody down there. There's no one down there. And I already knew this, but I was reminded that Jackson has what are called pilot operated lights. And if it's pilot operated lights, that means that it's black And that anytime you're within 5 miles of the airport, if the pilot toggles his mic. It's called keying your mic. If you key the mic 5 times and you're within 5 miles of Jackson and your radios are set to the frequency consistent with that ILS, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, the instrument landing system goes on. And you guys have all seen the instrument landing system. It's these lights channeling you down to that center line on the runway, designed to help the pilot in command pick up the lights as early as they can coming down through the clouds. And so 5 times. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Irrational fear is a great enemy. The only thought that I could have at that point in time, there's no controller down there. There's a strike. There's nobody down there to help me. And what if the lights don't go on? You know what? In my entire life's experience, I've never heard of a pilot operated lighting system not going on. I don't think it's ever happened in the entire history of aviation in America. I don't think there's been a time when a pilot keyed the lights and they didn't go on. But fear is irrational, and all the logic in the world does not overcome irrational fear. And in my mind, there's nobody down there, and the lights are not going to go on. The irrational fear was also stopping me from making a logical choice in the following way. The landing strip at Jackson is at about 7,000 feet. That's about the base elevation there. I don't remember it exactly, but it's about 7,000 feet. If we go back and consider the icing envelope, where was the icing envelope? The icing envelope was clear up here between 15 and 19,000 feet. That's where the icing envelope was. And so you see, if I set up to execute the Jackson approach so far before I ever got down to the landing area, I would have exited the icing envelope. And it doesn't take very long at all. When you go out of the icing envelope, it does not take very long at all for that ice to melt away or break off. Logic, had I had any ability to be logical at that point in time, there was one logical thing at that point, and that was to trust in a system that always worked, to key the mic 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That was the first logical thing. Maybe not in order of importance or even in order of, there were a few logical things. Let me call that was the one of them, maybe not the first. Maybe the first one was to tell the truth. Air Route Traffic Control Center, 6162 Romeo. I'm a relatively inexperienced pilot. I have 230 total hours of flight time in IFR conditions, most of that under the hood. I don't have icing equipment. I've picked up a load of ice. I'm unable to maintain altitude, and I'm now descending involuntarily at about the same rate as the flight path. That is what would have got me the help to enable me to avoid the decisions that I was making, because I didn't tell the truth. And I didn't tell the truth. I wasn't lying. I just wasn't telling the truth, because I didn't tell the truth as a result of pride, ego, and fear. I didn't get the benefit of the air route traffic controller saying 6162 Romeo, with confidence, enter the approach. The ice will break off your wings 4,000 feet above the runway. That's what would have happened had I simply told the truth instead of being frozen behind a wall of fear, which prevented me from doing the only logical thing. And so, as I'm descending down, some of you may have flown into Jackson Hole. If you do, what it's sort of like is there's a mountain here, and there's a mountain here, and there's a runway down here. And so it's a steep descent to a land. And in my mind, all I could vision was, I'm going to set up for this ILS, this approach. There's nobody down there. I'm going to get down there. There's going to be no lights on. And when there's no lights on, I'm going to have a load of ice on my wings. I won't be able to find the airport. I'll have a load of ice on my wings, and I won't have the ability to climb back out. All a lie. All a lie being told me by a mind frozen in fear. The lights always go on. And if the lights had not gone on, if they were inoperable, the controllers would know it, and they would tell me that, but it's never happened. And the truth, you see, if fear gets me, then I cannot discern the true from the false. The false was the lights aren't going on. The false was I'll have a load of ice and I can't climb back out. The false was, Randy, you put yourself into a position from which you cannot recover. That was what was false. The truth was that the lights would go on. The truth was that if I acknowledged my situation, help would be immediately available. The truth was the ice would break off my wings long before it needed to for me to successfully execute that approach. But at that point in time, I could not tell the true from the false. And so, though I had fallen beneath at that point the MEA, you'll see the MEA from Jackson on to Idaho Falls, 16,000 feet again. I said, I've decided to continue my route of flight on Victor 21 South. I'm not going to execute the approach to Jackson, abort that. I'm going to go on to Jackson and continue my route of flight to Idaho Falls, Idaho, and on to Rexburg. And Air Traffic Control Center said, no problem. Please return to or above the MEA of 16,000 feet. Reset your radios too, and make the continued flight. And once again, I did not have the capacity at that point in time to tell them I was carrying ice. The reason I was below the MEA was not because I had initially set up the approach, but because the airplane was going down. And now I had, and by the way, from here to here, from Jackson to crossing the Front Range, it's 7 minutes. It's no time. It is just no time. Man, how long 7 minutes can be. And so the airplane's gradually inching down. The MEA is 16,000 feet. 15.3, 15.4, 15. Air route traffic controller 6162 Romeo, you're 1,000 feet below the MEA. Return to the MEA. At which point, finally, I had no choice but to acknowledge the truth. I cannot return to the MEA. I have rime ice on my wings. I have no de-icing equipment. I am firewalled and fully trimmed, and I cannot go to the MEA. Air route traffic controller, in a very calm, non-upset way, 6162 Romeo, return. Execute a 180 degree turn. Let me just execute a 180 degree turn. 180 degree turn. And a 2 minutes, a 180 degree 2-minute turn. That would keep the circumference inside the 2-mile radius of the MEA. And that would still keep me 1,000 feet above the clouds. Execute a 2-minute 180 degree turn, return on Victor 21 North now to Jackson and execute the ILS. That was the instruction I was given. Those were correct instructions. Those were instructions that would allow me to land safely. I was completely frozen in fear. My mind is telling me the airplane's going to fall below 15,000 feet. I'm not going to be able to execute a 2-minute 180 degree turn for a variety of reasons. The equipment's not all of the lies, all of the reasons. Once again, I must avoid the occasion of fear. If fear gets me, I will make bad choices, and each bad choice will then be compounded by the next bad choice. It is all about avoiding the incidents thereof. Now, I have learned in latter parts of my life how to extricate myself from fear. At that point in time, I had not learned, and I was literally frozen by it, and I nearly lost my life that day as a result of it. I was unable, and I told them I'm unable. I told them I am unable to follow those instructions. I'm going to continue on Victor 21 South across the Front Range. And at that point, the center said 6162 Romeo, in approximately 180 seconds, you will fall beneath our ability to communicate with you by voice, and you will lose tracking ability between the Jackson VOR and the Idaho Falls VOR. You'll be flying in the clouds at or below the MEA with no communications. Return, execute a 180 degree 2-minute turn, return to Jackson, and execute the ILS. And I simply ignored the instruction. I just completely ignored the instruction. And as I continued along, some of you have been in that area. I've ridden horses in that area, and I've snowmobiled in that area, and I've backpacked in that area. The Grand Teton is 13,700 and some feet. And I was somewhere within 5 miles of the Grand Teton Peak, but I could not identify exactly where I was because I now had lost the ability to track on the VOR. And there was not an ability to know where exactly I was, but I was within 5 miles of the Grand Teton, which is 13,700 feet, gradually inching lower and lower and lower. And as I'm inching lower, the controller said 6162 Romeo, we will now lose you on radar and we will lose voice communications. You must execute the 180 degree 2-minute turn. You must, that was the words, you must execute 180 degree 2-minute turn. And at that point in time, I indicated, I'm sorry, I cannot. Would you please give me a compass heading so that I can successfully make this transition? And they said, we don't have accurate pilot reports with wind conditions. We cannot give you a compass heading. Return to Jackson and shoot the ILS. And that was the last voice communication. And I then had less than 2 minutes. It was fewer than 2 minutes that I was in the clouds. I was beneath the MEA. I had no voice communication, and I had no ability to track between beacons. And the airplane went lower, lower, and lower. And there was approximately a 30-second segment of time where I was lower than 13,700 feet, lower than the peak at the Grand Teton, and I had no ability to communicate verbally, no ability to track to or from beacons. And I then experienced something that I have not experienced before or since in my life. I've never really understood how a person can take their life. At that moment, I did understand. Despair is what? Despair is absence of hope. And at that moment in time, I had made a series of decisions that had resulted in an absence of hope. I believed that I'd put myself into an environment from which there was no recovery. And at that point in time, I thought that it was over, that I had just made a series of decisions from which I could not recover. And it was now any next split second would be the end. And I could not begin to know when it was. I couldn't see beyond the front cowling of the airplane. And that was 30 seconds of, I'm shocked still that I don't have stretch marks on my chest from my heart pounding and that instance of despair. Since that point in time, I have simply made a decision in my life. There will be no instances in my life in the future where I experience despair. I will make decisions that result in there never being an absence of hope. Because once despair is there, there is nothing else. Then it is purely only God is going to decide whether the next 90 seconds are life or death. That's where I was at that point in time. And at about that moment in time, I did have, an incredible crash. And God, it was just, I literally thought I would jump out of my skin. All that had happened is a chunk of ice had broken off of the propeller. I had not been cycling the propeller to break it off, slammed into the windshield, actually cracked the windshield. It was all I could do, not have the airplane turned upside down. Literally and truly, and no kidding, it was over. And that persisted for about 15 more seconds. And then the radio crackled on. And the air traffic controller said, 6162 Romeo, you've crossed the front range. You can descend to 8,000 feet, see where the MEA is, and continue on your route of path. And about 90 seconds later, the ice was off of the wings. And 35 minutes later, I was on the ground in Idaho Falls, Idaho. Well, the question probably is, what in the world could that possibly have to do with our business? And I will tell you that has everything to do with everything in my own world. The questions that I have for each one of you, and there are a lot of lessons here, by the way, a lot of them. I don't know which ones you might have picked up on and which ones might have slipped through your fingers, but one of the lessons are, first of all, to know and understand what we are capable of and what we're not capable of. When I was in Cheyenne, Wyoming, and the air traffic controller, the flight service center, told me that there was marginal VFR on my route of flight. It was wintertime. I was 22 years old. I was an early instrument pilot. There was only one logical decision at that point in time. Randy, that flight is beyond your capability. Don't do it. Wait until the situation changes or get help. What a logical, obvious decision that would have been. But I couldn't see that at that point in time. Next, what was it? I was told that there was a route that I could follow. Remember when you've heard me say so many times, you've heard me say there's no luck and there's no guesswork. If we do A, then we get B. There is a path we can follow. I want you to know that just as there was a path that I could follow to successfully arrive at my destination in our business, everything I have done is in some respects patterned after this. What I've tried to do is create a path where there is an absolute 100% chance that if one follows the path, he or she will arrive. And what else I've tried to do is position myself for the benefit of this organization until you replace me, is I've tried to position myself as the air route traffic controller to give you guidance whenever something feels a little bit frightening, whenever something doesn't feel exactly right. Tried to position myself as the air route traffic controller, helping you return to the center line if ever you find yourself off it, hoping to be able to see things that you cannot see as a result of my relative more experience and your relative less. The next thing that is most important to me in this story, in this life experience, it's not a story. The most important lesson for me in this life experience is to know and understand my icing envelopes. Folks, you have icing envelopes. Every single one of you do. Do you know what they are? And do you know that you may have some icing envelopes for which you have no de-icing equipment? And you say, Randy, what in the hell are you talking about? Well, I'll give you a couple of examples. As has been well told, I am in recovery from alcoholism and drug addiction. Certain things that would be icing envelopes for me would not be an icing envelope for you. Ryland, if I were to come to your town and you invited me to go out to dinner and drinks with you and friends, I would go out to dinner. But when it came time for the drinks, I'd say, guys, enjoy yourself and I'll see you tomorrow. Because that's an icing envelope for me. I don't belong at a table full of people who are drinking. Not after the first drink. First drink's okay. After the second drink, the conversations go sideways. I don't fit there anymore. That's an icing envelope for me. You know what else is an icing envelope for me? An icing envelope for me throughout my, oh God, I mean, I was this is just the truth, folks. In my early childhood experience, I was abused in a variety of ways, physically and sexually. That results in very poor boundaries. And I've worked my whole life to create proper boundaries. My first two marriages were sacrificed to infidelity. I will never make that sacrifice again, but I've had to learn what my icing envelopes are. And my icing envelopes are people who behave in ways that are not consistent with the ways that I know that I must behave in order to stay healthy, happy, and in fact alive. It is an icing envelope for me to hang out with people who are even romancing the idea of a drink or a drug. It is an icing envelope for me to hang out with people who think it's fun to have relationships that are inappropriate if they happen to be married, or inappropriate relationships whether or not they're married. I know what my icing envelopes are, and I just choose to stay out of them. Today, I do have de-icing equipment. I'm really grateful for my de-icing equipment. And that de-icing equipment, it shows up for me in a variety of ways. One of the reasons that I think I am so very, very fortunate to be in recovery is because that gives me de-icing equipment. It's because my sponsor can see in me things that I cannot see in myself, and he can call to my mind the issues I need to be aware of that I might be missing. And it's not just my sponsor, it's anyone who's in the recovery community that I've allowed to get to know me and that I've become familiar and comfortable with. I would encourage all of you to have mentors, peer groups, associations where you become eligible to and are open to the feedback of others who can see in you things that you cannot see in yourself. I have other icing envelopes, and all of you know, please know this. I never, ever, ever would seek to impose my version of spirituality or religion on any of you. But what is my other de icing equipment? Folks, I'm a Catholic. I can go to confession on Wednesdays and Saturdays every week. And if I made some error over the course of the last week, I can just go and disclose that error to the priest, and he'll say, your sins are absolved. And just like that, I broke the ice off my wings. And you might say, if you're not a Catholic already, that's a bunch of baloney. Well, that's what I believe. You see, it's what you believe that matters for you. It's not what I believe that matters for you. It's what you believe that matters for you. And so, what I believe is that I need to avoid the occurrence of ice, and I will not intentionally fly into the ice, even though today I do have some de icing equipment. I will not fly into the ice intentionally. If I do fly into it, I'll get out of it. And let me tell you, folks, a couple more things about icing envelopes. I'm hoping that one or two of you will fact check me on this because I'll miss the percentages by a little bit. But something north of 40% of all divorce filings in the United States of America include social media. 40%. They're hookups that were made on Facebook. They're hookups that were made on TikTok. They were going back and reconnecting with high school friends and boyfriends and girlfriends and college friends and boyfriends and girlfriends. 40% of divorce filings have social media in them. Well, guess what? That means that 40% of marriages had an icing envelope that one or the other part of was not aware of, and they flew into it. And once they got into it, they didn't know how to extricate themselves, and bad things happened as a result. Well, I could go on and on and on. Anything that would provoke feelings of physical, mental, or emotional fear, those are all for me icing envelopes, and I stay out of them. If I find myself inadvertently in one, then I know how to apply my de icing equipment. If I inadvertently find myself in any environment that would result in me behaving in any way, personally, professionally, socially, that is inappropriate, that is an icing envelope. I choose not to hang out with people who behave ways that I don't want to behave because the ice will stick. And you know what's amazing, folks? You can fly in the ice for an hour and not pick up a single speck. But as soon as the first speck sticks, the next speck, you can fly for an hour and a half in the ice, not a single bit of damage. As soon as the first speck sticks, 90 seconds later, you can have a load of ice so heavy that the wing will no longer create lift and you're in trouble. I could really and truly, folks, I could teach a weekend long boot camp on only the things that I learned from this one life experience. This one life experience is one of 21 lessons that are included in the boot camp, More Happy More of the Time, Lessons in Life and Leadership. My great hope is that at some time in the near future, we're able to assemble this group of people and others who become part of it into an in-person 3-day leadership boot camp where all 21 of those lessons are described. More happy, more of the time, lessons in life and leadership. Um, I'm hoping that was of value to somebody. I don't know. It was a value to me. So you know what? Since it was a value to me, it was. I'll just call a couple of you. Dave, my friend, just chime in. Any thoughts? It matters not.
Thank you for taking me on the adventure, man. I lost my breath with the lack of oxygen at 17,000. I could feel it. I could feel not understanding the horizon and the tumbling feeling. I could feel the heart pressure going up. I could feel the tension. I could feel the sweating in the palms start. I was there. I was there. I've been there. I've been there. That was amazing. No, I appreciate that very much, and thank you for sharing. And man, fear's such a strange thing, And if we can help folks with that, man, we can change the world. And I think the world's about to change, and we can be a part of it. And I'm excited about that. Happy Valentine's, everybody.
Thank you. And Dave, before you go away, we got a couple of folks here that have not been on the Daily Dose of Randy yet. Barry Elrod is here. I invited Barry to be here. I think he joined only relatively later in the
Oh, Barry,
conversation.
welcome aboard. Good to see you.
But if you would just describe from your perspective, and Barry, Dave has been at the top of the food chain in the direct selling industry for a long time, knows this business really, really well.
Barry and I have had conversations in the past.
Oh yeah, okay. So Dave, if you don't mind, just chime in and describe from your perspective, just briefly, what is the Daily Dose of Randy? Why do we do this? What might gain from it? And just generally speaking, the community we're developing, just chime in on that
Um,
briefly.
Dave, what's your
well,
last name?
Marquis, bud. Dave Marquis, Markee, 305-986-3700. The this will be selfish. For me, Randy, I was the last 5 years or so, I made a conscious decision to take a very hard look at the industry of marketing and what different people are doing in different genres. When I got excited about peptides, I looked at doing it myself. Yeah, it's not that hard to set it up and get your own products and get your label. And if I'm going to do the marketing, hey, I might as well go do it all and then know it gets done. And I looked at that. And when I did the math, I came out with about 32% gross profit before marketing and found a way to do it better, with more profitability and hands off, which I love. The As it relates to here, when I was targeted four, five, six different people. I looked at people that have been with the same company for over 30 years, doing exactly the same thing. The presentation was the same 30 years ago as it is today, and that's that story. What attracted me and the reason I followed Randy literally for a couple of years, watching him um, navigate. I'm a navigator from the Navy, Barry. I watched him navigate the space, but he was in the trenches doing it, and I had the luxury of not being in the trenches while I was working on some family health issues, and which I'm grateful to have the time to be able to do that. The Randy's earned eight figures in 3D, four different decades, virtually, four different opportunities, four different product genres, but with the same 10 steps, the same ladder of escalation, the same five things that you look for to qualify the opportunity. And having that consistency, when I look back at my positive and some of the less so positive runs, um, that was a missing piece in what I was doing. And I think it cost me multiple seven figures not having that piece. And I'm not going to make that same mistake going forward. And I think that if I understand it right, and I'm about 90% confident that I am, and maybe 10% I don't know what I don't know yet, but I'm looking for what that is, asking the right questions. I think that this piece of health education into the marketplace has such a tremendous value. It's bigger than network marketing. I mean that literally. And the timing of it was Mr. Kennedy at Health and Human Services just 3 weeks ago changed a multi-decade 70 injection mandatory in the United States to go to school here. We kept leaving states because the states told us what we had to put in our children, and then we left the country so that we could make our own decisions. Went live 10 years in a blue zone because we could and prioritize things. Now I'm back in the US because I think we have an opportunity right now because of what's happening politically, because of what's happening with the truth getting out, with understanding the criminal nature of what healthcare has been, and I mean that literally. And I believe there's going to be prosecution, and I believe there is going to be just an absolute natural health revolution um, for the first time. For the first time. And I think the United States of America, with American opportunity, is literally going to be happening for the first time right now because the America we're thinking we're in isn't the free one, but it is right now because of what's happening. And we get to take that and deliver America and its opportunity for the first time in the history of my lifetime, because it's no longer a corporation. It is the promise that it was meant to be by our founding fathers, and we have an opportunity to heal America. And without healing the citizens of America, of which 70% are grossly ill in a number of ways, in a number of ways, America does not survive unless America's health is strong. Let's do something about that. I'm going to. Back to
Thank you,
you.
Dave. Thank you. Ray Hallahan, just chime in briefly, both from a product and a business standpoint. And once again, we have some people here who are just kind of sticking their poking and prodding around, trying to decide, do I want to be involved with this product? Do I want to be involved with this company? So just quickly, your experience, product business.
Product, fantastic. Nitro was my first introduction uh, from being almost dead a year ago with a lung collapse. Rest of my life on oxygen until I found Nitro. I started on Nitro. 16 days later, no more oxygen in the daytime, just wear it at night. Total life changing. Other things, no more sore shoulders with the rest of the products. I got them all. In regards of the company, I haven't got a problem. I call them up. I don't call, or even if I text right now, done. I'm just amazed at the products. My wife's amazed, and we're just normal people that needed something to help us. And wow, I mean, my whole physique is changing. I've lost 16 pounds, and since the 1st of January, I'm not out running no miles or doing anything extra, but here I am. And I'm thankful to you, Randy, for introducing this to me. And you've changed my life, and I'm looking to change many more. And by the way, for February, I look today, I'm number 21 on the board for new customers. I'm like, where did that come from?
Is that not
Whoa.
awesome?
Get
And
used to
so,
that. Hey, Randy, and just I'll catch up. It's too good. I'll tell you later.
okay. And so I just want to say Raymond is having product success. He's also making money. Folks, proof of income is the lubrication that greases the wheels of all productivity in this industry. The things that make us excited, if we have a profound product experience, well, that's one down. Raymond used to wear oxygen, now he does not. The next thing is when people say yes instead of no. Well, so Raymond's number 21 and the company right now in new customer volume this month. I don't know exactly what that means, but I think he's done close to $2,000 in product sales in this month. And that will result in, I mean, he's earned a few $100s already this month. Are those great big figures? No, But we know that if people are making a little bit of money, then they stick around for the next week, for the next month, for the next month. My observation is not that people quit a company like this because they're making a little bit of money. People quit a company like this because they're overpaying for a product they can buy someplace else for less money. Well, you can't do that here. And people quit because they're losing money, not because they're making a little bit. And when one looks at what happens in this company, 82% of all sales are customer sales. The amount of money being made by selling a product as opposed to recruiting somebody who will recruit somebody who will recruit somebody is a complete paradigm shift in the entire direct selling industry. Have no idea what's on your mind this morning. I'm just going to call upon you, ask you to chime in on whatever your thoughts are today. Need to get you to unmute there. There we go.
Hello, I'm Paul Bradfield. My my heart is telling me that I'm a wellness and personal development guy and have been most of my life, and I've always been searching for products to help people that are natural, that are proven, uh, and obviously income opportunities along with that. But I know that if I'm not helping people first, it doesn't matter. Uh, I know the money will eventually come. Uh, I'm in a similar position as Randy, and not financially, but emotionally and spiritually. And my whole gift of life is to help others. And I originally met Randy, 35 plus years ago, and I too have been following him the last 5 years or so, and was in a few other spins of business that didn't work out. But I am again with him, and not because he directly told me, but because Dave and David told me, and that are in this group. So something's going right here.
Yeah.
And I'm going to continue to follow and learn as much as I can. And if I do the process, then it will be successful. So I'm looking forward to the future.
Fabulous. Thank you,
I
Paul.
don't even have my products yet.
Oh my gosh, I hope soon. Bev, do you happen to be there? Are you able to turn on your video and your mic or not, Bev? Don't know if she's around.
Oh, I'm always around, just cooking while I'm.
Okay, good. So, Bev, I'm calling upon you. I mean, and once again, I always talk to whomever's here. I'm talking to everybody. Barry is one who, and I hope Barry doesn't mind me, kind of talking in and around him here. But Barry is one who, like many of us, has been wandering through the muck and the mire of what the direct selling industry has been for the last 3 and 4 years, and trying to find a solution, trying to find a way to re-leverage, to recapitalize all that we learned over the course of all these years. Because the absolute truth is that if we tried to do the very same thing today that we did 20 years ago in the direct selling industry, we would not get the outcome today we got 20 years ago. We have to be willing to identify the things that always worked that will work in the future and be willing to jettison those things that don't work the same anymore. And then we also need to be willing to bring some new pieces into the puzzle. So just one second, Dave, I'm going to come back to you. But Bev, you are one who has been around the industry, had success in business. And by the way, nobody should hear me saying great big numbers. This is not big success yet, folks. But things can't stop. People have asked me so many times in the last 3 years, Randy, when do you think things will start getting better? And my response has been, well, first they've got to stop getting worse, right? And so what I feel like happened about 6-8 weeks ago is that things stopped getting worse. And once things stopped getting worse, then they could start gradually getting better. And so, Bev, just chime in. Things have started getting better. Describe it a little bit from your perspective.
They have. And okay, so I was successful as a business owner. However, in network marketing, never, 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 never. So Amway, I did an algae thing, crypto, all kinds of things. And so, first off, you do have to have the leadership. As soon as I heard Randy, and I liked that he was saying something different than everybody else that had been one of my leaders or my upline, he said, instead of just go out there and invite everybody, well, nobody wants to hear it. Everybody is getting hit by everybody else. Whereas Randy said, no, listen, listen, and only say something if you hear them express a need. That has been huge, as well as just having this group that we can voice, concerns and what can we do, and Randy's right there, and he has the experience and he shares it. He has walked this, and even it's been fun watching him through the last couple of years, which is when I met him, and how he pivots. And then, okay, now we're going to go here. All of those things are so important in a leader, and you don't find that very often. So this group is powerful. And as far as the tools, I feel like we really lucked out because we've got the Lev AI first to be able to help us to be able to share this message, because social media is big. And for those of us who have not taken advantage of that, we now have that opportunity. As well as the product's amazing. I have always had a slow metabolism, always, didn't understand genetics and all that stuff. Have always had problems with digestion. 3 days after I started this, and I came off of a human trial that I was on for 3 months that I loved. It finally had started helping me to be healthier, to start dropping some pounds that have been hanging around for over 30 years. However, I was constipated or only had diarrhea the whole time I was on it. And 3 days of using this tiny little pill that's the size of a Tic Tac, my digestion changed since menopause, and have not been able to sleep. I'm awake in the middle of the night for hours and hours, and I'm sleeping now. So, anyways, way past it, but hopefully I answered that there. It's exciting to have hope. I retired and sold my business at the first of 2025, and do not want to rely on those payments that are coming in from my business. I want to be able to experience something that I've never given my children, and that is the freedom to be able to buy things without always being conscious of price, to be able to travel. Those are all things we've never been able to do, and so it's exciting.
Beautiful. And so, Beth, before you leave here, um, you and I have known each other for a couple of years, and you've made a solid effort throughout. And so, think back. Let's go back 90 days before you heard of Nueva. You are one who works hard to improve, but we don't change a lot in 60 or 90 days, right? 90 days ago, you were approximately the same person that you are today. And so, 90 days ago, before finding Nueva, how much monthly volume did your business do? And now, having found Nueva, how much volume does your business do last month?
So last month, okay, do you want that? You mean what I pulled in? Like
I
the
mean, the
money that
volume in your group. What is the volume? Go back
the
90 days ago, your volume was at zero. Now you
right.
found Nueva. What was your volume last month?
Okay, sorry, but those dollars in the bank speak so much more. I made almost $500, so that's huge for me.
Okay.
So there.
Okay. So Bev made almost $500. She had revenue of $3,000 or $4,000. I don't know the number. Bev works hard to become more, but does it not feel incredibly different? $500, you're a successful businesswoman, you've had success. $500 is not a fortune, but does it not feel different when we have some income?
Yes.
Okay, folks, the three things that must occur for this to take root and to become monumental, just three. Positive product experience. That, in my estimation, is an absolute sum certain in this company. If we want the product to work, we simply need use it. Second thing is, besides a positive product experience, a positive income experience. It doesn't have to be a fortune. If a person's making a little money, they will still be standing for the next month so they can make a little bit more. And then the third part is a person must feel included, valued, respected, and a part of something. Those are the three things. If we do those three things, we'll successfully survive just about any bump that comes down the road. In our infancy, we're already accomplishing those three things. Those are things that sometimes take months and months or years. And in fact, for the last 3 years, notwithstanding my life's experience and my willingness to work that is almost unparalleled, for 3 years before finding Nueva, I was unable to create those three things. In 2.5 months, we've been able to create those three things and forecast how steep the growth is of those three things in the coming months. And Dave, I'll let you wrap it up.
Oh, this is just for Barry on a personal note. Barry, I'm not looking for a health testimonial. It's the last thing I want. I want good health and not have to have testimonials. But I injured my shoulder about 5 years ago. I did not know what a frozen shoulder was. It took me a year to work it out. It was the year of COVID. I was down in Costa Rica. The About a week before Christmas, I did it again. It came back worse than it was. This stuff I got from Randy, they call it beauty. I think it's poorly named. It's got enough. Anyway, the 157, BPC 157, the BPC stands for body compound, body correction compound, BC, body. It's about healing the body. 157, there's 15 amino acids working down 7 different pathways simultaneously. And my shoulder frozen. I could not touch the top of my head. I couldn't do a push-up for 2 months. I thought I had a year in front of me like I did before. And it feels like it's about 70%, making about 10% a day. And something's working. It's got my attention. Back to you.
Beautiful. Thank you. You know what? I'm going to call upon one more, even though I said I would not. Rylan, just chime in. Say whatever's on your mind. Click on unmute. There we go.
I'm still amazed at the products. As I told you, I'm diabetic. I've been taking like metformin for 15 years, 1,000 milligrams a day, twice a day. And I stopped. I stopped my blood pressure medicine. I stopped my diabetic medicine. I stopped my cholesterol medicine. And as I told you guys, beginning of last week, sometime, my sugar level numbers were typically 180, 200. That's on medication. And since I started taking Nitro and Body last week, it was 92. 2 days ago, it was 112. Today, it was 156, but that was right after I had lunch. So I'm just ecstatic with how this has been performing because I didn't expect it. Same thing when it comes with my prostate issues. I didn't expect it, but now I feel like I'm a 21-year-old guy again. So I'm just now going into that next phase, wanting to make some money.
I love it. Okay, so I could be talking to anybody and everybody. But folks, inclusion in this community will improve other parts of your life. Separate and distinct from whatever we do in this business, inclusion in this community will improve other parts of your life. I would like nothing more than for each of us to, I would like each of you to have this number of people from your group on this session about 90 days from now. Because as we gradually expand a leadership foundation, that is what makes the results kind of automatic and very, very predictable. At the conclusion of this session today, I ask each one of you to remember that when I started on this flight, I had a pre-flight checklist. I had to call the flight service center. I had to identify the weather patterns. I had to know the route of flight. Folks, these are the things that are identified when we do a proper new member orientation. If we don't do a proper new member orientation, then it is like having our new member set off on a flight with absolutely no logic that they're going to successfully arrive at the destination. And so there is a bit of responsibility. There is such a thing as being a, quote, responsible sponsor. Being a responsible sponsor means that we introduce each person to the 10 steps to getting started correctly. It means we introduce each person to the ladder of escalation. It means that, as per Bev, that we listen to what they have to say so we can then help them learn what the comp plan is and how to access those parts of the comp plan that will allow him or her to meet their objectives. And my final thought to it all is, again, going back and reflecting on all that was said, but Bev said a magic thing. If you want to grow a candidate list, listen. If you want to chase people away, talk. Tell people what's important to you, and they will literally flee. Find out what's important to them, and they will come towards you. We have solutions for most things that are important to people. Happy Valentine's Day, everybody. We're going to head off.
I got a question.
Fire away.
my mom just started complaining about her hip today, and she's close to 90. And I'd like to give her something. There's a gazillion networking products out there. I heard Dave's shoulder. My P stream isn't the best. That sounds like another product. Now, what about overlapping? You know, too much of a good thing might hurt my kidneys or liver, and my overlapping, all these amino acids or whatever. So it'd be great if it was one thing does all. Helps you
Happily,
sugar.
happily, yeah, happily enough, Barry, there is a relatively easy answer to your question. And the relatively easy answer is for you, and you just described it. Isn't this an interesting thing? I've known Barry now for a while, and it's the business, the business, the business, the business, money, 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 money. And what is this conversation about? Well, I'd like it if my urine flow would improve. I'd like it if my 90-year mother didn't have so much pain. The bottom line is that if we have health solutions, that is what people want to talk about. If we don't have health solutions, then we wind up talking about money. All right, that's sort of where it goes. So the short answer, Barry, is this. I would so strongly encourage you to acquire the entire peptide mix. But as time has gone by, I'm equally enamored of the non-peptide products. Ryland talked about nitro. Nitro is not a peptide product. Raymond has impacted our group. Raymond's probably resulted in more people being enthused about the product than almost anyone else, and it was provoked before he'd ever used the peptide products. And so, to specifically respond to your question, Barry, the product that I would most like your mom to use if she's experiencing pain would be the one labeled beauty. And as Dave mentioned, it's probably, I mean, it's not mislabeled because if our body's healthier, it looks better. But the fact is that when one thinks of beauty, they're not necessarily thinking of pain relief. And that's what will come from BPC 157, which is contained inside that product. So for
Body
pain,
body
Is it
protection compound. Body
so?
protection compound.
So I take it works on inflammation.
correct. I mean, Barry, the entire product line, we can think of it this. There are three baselines, and the three baselines for the product are to reduce or to manage inflammation. And right now, Barry, you could do yourself and all of us a favor. I wish very much that I'd had my A1C markers checked before I used my first product because I know that the inflammation in my body has gone down. I don't question, I know that. Unfortunately, I didn't go and get it checked first. One of the great successes I've had in my life is when we offered a cholesterol reduction product years ago, and we had people go and check their cholesterol. They went and checked it before they started using it. And so then it was something we could document. Nobody could look at me and say, oh my God, Randy, your cholesterol's
Right.
go down, right? So go get your A1C markers checked and you'll find out that
Yep.
inflammation will go
I,
down.
I, I have a tester at home, and I'd
Okay.
be happy
Would
because
love
I'm
that.
curious about
There's a
mine.
major challenge, especially in the United States, and not of inflammation. There's no problem with inflammation. Everybody's got it. There's a very specific reason why it's not being turned off, and it's more pronounced in the United States than anywhere else in the world, if I'm seeing it right. And I'm 90% confident of this. Part of the mechanism, Barry, that turns off the chronic inflammation is being disrupted with the Monsanto glyphosate, especially, that's just ubiquitous in the United States. This mechanism is nothing more than communication, and there's a whole cascade of the positive effects that has the inflammation switch being turned off. It's part of what this does, and there's six other things. You're going to love looking into it, and mom needs it. Back to
So
you.
Yeah.
find
How much is that a month?
$189. So
Oh,
the shortfall, go and you'll try to replace it for less money. You can't. So Barry, what I would strongly recommend is that, and I will just now say this: buy a bottle of body and send it to your, excuse me, a beauty and send it to your mom. For you, get nitro and get body. And after you've used them up, if you can send me a text and honestly say, Randy, that did not do what I thought it would do, send me back my money. Here's my Venmo code. I'll send it back.
Hey,
That's the
Randy,
truth.
are we still are we able to get
what?
the sneak peek on the new product also? Do we get
Yeah, it's still available right now. And I mean, Barry,
okay.
yesterday or 3 days ago, we introduced tesofensine and dihexa. I mean, this company's sales will double in March.
This
We
is
will.
going to be
We'll
this is going to get everybody's attention if I see that right.
yeah, we'll double in
Well, may,
March. I mean, I don't have
well,
any doubt
well, well,
about
that
that.
might take care of the inflammation. That
Well,
product.
yeah, it will
It
help for
has
sure. So you can buy that
157
right
in it.
now.
It has
You can
150, and I think
Okay.
there's a promo that gives you a couple of free products.
right. You can still do that right now. That's available for another couple of days. At any rate, the product offering stands on its own, as it works out. And in fact, I will leave this room open. As you guys all know, I'm a Catholic. I don't impose anybody else, but we've had this little health scare with Samantha going on. The mass is actually being said for Samantha today, and so we need to be there on time. And thank God we got the great happy news yesterday. But just in case, I didn't know what yesterday's news was going to be, and so I had a mass being said for today, and so we need to head over there. But anyway, folks, I'm grateful for all of you. This is such a thank God moment for me. I mean, folks, 90 days ago, I have to tell you, I knew I'd find an answer, but I didn't know what it would be.
Grateful,
I didn't know
Randy.
what it would be.
Gracias, amigo. Good to see you,
Thanks,
Barry. Ciao,
everybody.
guys.
I'm gonna
Take
leave the
care.
meeting open.
Thanks,
I'm just gonna
Randy.
take off. See you guys.
Take care.
Hey, Dave, did you jump off?
Dave here. Just getting ready to go check on my meat.
Oh, okay. Can you just
Hey,
let
that's a
me
little
know?
personal.
Huh.
Did did you happen to find out anything about that question I asked you?
I've got a doctor on it right now, a research doctor. As a matter of fact, we had a conversation today. We're taking a look at the different injectable peptides. There was a communication because some of them come in combinations of two, three, four, whatever. And we're not doing injectables in this company. They could, but I don't think we're going to need to. And just keeping things easy, simple. But the in the injection ones, it looks like when you go to make them up, that the different compounds will have different pH, and so there's a question if there's any degradation in losing potency if you mix it or not. And there's a little. I got a couple guys fighting it over, so I got the right guys fighting on it.
Thank you.
So
Hey,
Dave,
anything
you're
else I can
taking
help with
your,
before I jump off, guys? I'm not very far into this, but I like what I see.
where in Florida are you, Dave? I'm in Florida
Oh,
right now.
I got the phones in Miami. We got a major event coming up in Orlando. When I made a trip down to Costa Rica, I picked up 5 phones. That's why the 305. But I'm currently in Austin right now helping some family.
Oh, okay. So it's
Where in Texas
108.
or where in Florida are you?
I'm in Sunny Isles,
Help me. Where is
near
that?
North Miami, between
Oh, got it.
South Beach and Fort Lauderdale.
Oh, beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. Yeah,
So,
yeah. Does or they're going to be releasing? Well, they made a decision to release this new product. It's got the 157 in it, and they got a little promo where they're. I recommend looking at what that is, possibly and then they're going to have all these people that have been on the product all together in Orlando, like 5th or 6th of next month, in a couple weeks. So it's going
oh,
to be pretty
okay.
interesting.
So, Barry, the one thing though is that one will not be shipping until the 20th of this month. And I know for me, getting that product and being able to use it. So mine was, I started with body and I used that for, as soon as I started seeing results, then I got the other products. But because of religious beliefs, I don't do nitro and I don't do the coffee.
Right. I have nitro with another company. They have it on a strip.
Hey
Okay.
Barry, jot this down. This is the ingredients in beauty. Just do a quick AI on it, and you'll know what you want to do. Uh,
Hold on.
okay,
So you're at 986-3700.
correct.
Hold on. Let me make a note. Okay. What is it?
GHK dash CU. That's copper. You're going to be all over this. The BPC 157 again stands for body protection compound. That's a clue. This stuff's been around for 40 years. In Russia, they give the stuff away. It's in every store. It's been kept from the US. KPV,
BPC BPC 157. Okay. Did you
Bravo.
Google each one and say harmful side effects?
There aren't any. This is
There
this
are
is
none.
there aren't any. It's
All right. What's the
all a
next one
peptide
ingredient?
is a small protein.
I mean,
If it's over
okay.
50 amino acids,
Okay.
it's a protein. If it's less, it's peptide. That's all we got.
Okay. What's the
You're,
last
you're
thing you said after 157? BPC.
Kilo Papa Victor,
Spell it.
KPV.
KPV.
Correct. Those are the three ingredients, peptides.
And
Not
and
not Yeah,
that's 189, and that's called the beauty.
that is correct. At
And
189
do
on
you have any?
subscription.
Yeah. Do you have arthritis?
Not that I know of. I've never had
Oh,
anything. I've never had any itis
just to
until my
show.
shoulder didn't
How,
work.
how about you, Bev? Are you on this
I
particular
am.
product?
Yes, I
Yeah.
am. So
And
I do beauty.
what's it done for you? Don't lie.
So mine, I'm watching my arthritis. You can see my hands. For 26 years, I used a screwdriver to build bird nest. And so I am not happy with showing my hands just because of that arthritis. That one I don't know. I can move my hands better. They were starting to curl more, and I don't have that going on anymore, but I couldn't give you for sure's on that. I just know that it has helped with my digestion. It's helped with my sleep. It has helped with my
When you say
energy.
your digestion, what goes in the toilet is looking better? Is that
Yes, I have never done well there. And after 3 days of and I started only with the body. After 3 days, I have been consistent since then, as well
that's good.
as um I was able to drop 13 pounds. But during the holidays, because that's when I had started, was I think right about the middle of December is when I started the beauty, or I mean the body. I have been able to keep that off, and I love baking, and I love sampling everything before I give it to people, as well as sampling theirs. And so being able to keep that weight off during that time was huge. So those are my big standout things. There's other things that I've noticed, but I didn't actually write them down to where I could remember and probably share those with you right now.
Hey Barry,
Hmm.
here's one that'll help mom that's got nothing to do with any product that any company sells really, but it's a game changer. If it's inflammation, especially. There's an amino acid. It's the smallest amino acid. It's called glycine with a G, Gly, glycine.
Mm-hmm.
Glycine is one of the three peptides that make up glutathione. And this is being, and it's, they call it a non-essential amino acid, poorly named, because you do manufacture some and can recycle some. We have about 3 grams productivity in America generally, need about 15 for that inflammation process to really work and be, these two things are going to pile up and really help each other. If she, the vast majority of people need glycine in their diet and they don't know it, and it's like eight
Oh, you're
dollars for a
saying,
3 month supply.
yeah,
Yeah.
like from QVC or CVS, I
Yeah,
mean.
yeah. Amazon, eight, ten
Yeah.
dollars for a 3 month supply. It's sweet like sugar, about
See, now,
70%.
now we won't know if it's the glycine helping her hip or this $190 product.
We know it all help. We know it all works, and she deserves it all. That's what I think.
I hear you. Well, if I like this deal, I'm in the systems, and I'll let you guys in on it if I do something here. Uh, got some neat tools. Does this company, using AI and all kinds of all kinds of tricks and data uh, to build any company.
Yeah.
So I one thing is it does these 30-second texting, so I could text opportunity seekers a 30-second video.
Do
Does
me a
this
favor,
company?
I'm organizing up my run. Send me whatever you got so I know what the tools are. But I'm the least technical guy I know, and I need the tools to do what I'm about to do.
Yeah, well, we could talk off on the side
Okay.
about it.
I gotta
Uh,
run and get this meal. I'm
yeah.
feeding a bunch of
Okay.
people.
Okay.
Hey, great to see everybody. Thanks,
Take
guys.
care.
And
Have a
you.
great night.
Good night.
Figured let someone see me.
Yeah, I'm I can see you. I think there's probably only two of us left.
So it worked on your prostate. The whose prostate did it help with the pee stream?
No, I don't know, Barry. I'm going to be totally upfront and honest with you. A year ago, February 3rd, I ended up going to the hospital in an ambulance. I had a total lung collapse. I was immediately taken into
How'd
ICU.
that happen?
Well, I smoke.
Am I gonna
Over
have
the
to stop
years,
stop
I've been,
stop smoking my weed?
well, hey, I'm in Canada. It's all legal, brother.
Right, right. Same
But
here.
yeah, so anyway, after 16 days in a medical induced coma that they didn't think I was going to come out of, but I did. Uh, my doctor sent me home 3 months later after getting out of ICU on the ward for 2 weeks. Then I come home. I was able to gain my strength and be able to walk again. I come home and all he gave me was two puffers and here, take a multivitamin. So I spent all last summer and all last fall on oxygen 24/7. That was the rest of my life. Upon finding this product, ordering and having it delivered right around the end of December,
Which
the first
one? Which one? The beauty?
I took the nitro berry. I
Oh,
ordered the
okay.
nitro. I ordered the coffee and it's called Snow Slim. It's 15 milliliters you take in the morning. It's for dietary purpose. It's collagen, type 2 collagen. So it was good for your bones and whatever. So anyway, to make a long story short, in 8 days, I noticed a big difference in my body. I had no more elbow pain, no more shoulder pain, no more knee pain. So I ordered all the products. I ordered the Ultimate Series set or whatever. So a week later, on the 16th, when I got that product, I was already checking my numbers every day whenever I walk upstairs, downstairs, because I had to, wearing oxygen, of where my oxygen level was at. So to come downstairs to walk back up again, one step at a time, one step at a time, one foot after the other, you know what I mean? In 16 days, I was able to start taking full steps up, full steps down. But when I came down
No, your
before I
lungs healing.
yes, so when I came down before I got on the nitro product, I would have to be my oxygen for you normal people would be 96, 97. That's your
Right.
percentage.
Sometimes mine's 92. I've seen mine
Yeah,
at 92.
yeah. So 92, you're still okay, but you know what I mean? We all lose some function. But my oxygen would go down to 82, 81,
Oh
83.
wow. Yeah.
So with the nitro, right now, no oxygen. I leave downstairs, I go upstairs to my kitchen table and sit down. My oxygen's at 90, 91. Depending how
Oh,
fast
okay.
I go up, depending how fast I go up, maybe it'll hit 89. So once I got
Hey,
on,
if you take some deep breaths, it'll raise it too.
well, there's lung damage. So this is the thing, is you got to stop the activity and take breaths through your nose, out through your mouth, through your nose, out through your mouth. So, in saying that, when I got the rest of the products, I noticed even before I started on the 16th on the other products that, I still had inflammation in my ankles, my legs, uh, my face. So I took all the rest of the products. I haven't changed anything, Barry. Like I haven't changed my diet or anything else. Like I'm not gone all healthy on everything.
What's it cost you to take all these products a month?
About 11, $12 a day.
Okay.
An Ultimate Series is, I don't know, about $800 or $900 your money. A lot of money for my money up here, but yeah,
Eight hundred a month?
no, that's a two
No.
month supply, right?
Yeah, I was gonna
But the
say
night
your calculations, $12 a day times 30 is whatever, 350 or something. Uh,
peanuts, as far as I'm concerned. I will go out and
mhm.
shovel driveways or cut someone's grass to have better health for that kind of money. But I remember, I take all the products, Barry.
Right. As
Every
long
one of
as
them.
as long as it's not taxing anything else, kidneys or liver,
No. Well,
again.
it's a peptide.
Yeah.
Here's a simple thing that I've heard a few
And you
people.
can't go on Amazon and find these peptides cheaper?
Not a chance not a chance in hell.
Yeah.
Not a
Did you
chance.
try? Did you look around?
I've I done my research. I didn't just jump on because Randy mentioned to me. I was already looking at this. I've got friends that've been on peptides for over a year, but they're doing the injections, and I'm not into injections. And what they're paying
Right,
160,
right,
$175 for that BCP 157. They're
right.
only in a vial that they're paying 160, $169 for. That's only lasting them not even a week.
Right.
Like
So
so it's
why can't you get it on Amazon 157?
well,
They
I
don't.
don't know if you can. I never looked, but that's what you're getting. You're not getting the pill
Right.
form. You're not getting that cocktail, that mixture. You're just getting straight PC 157, but you're not getting it in a pill. That's the thing. It's not the point of
Well, it's more effective probably in a shot than your digestive juices, you know.
well, that's where you want to get it. You want to get it into your digestive system because it's a little coating on it that goes
Oh,
through your stomach to get into your intestines. That's where everything is happening, like for
oh yeah. Yeah,
your
I got
amino
a little
acids, right?
diverticulosis.
Yeah,
Well, they'll probably
yeah,
maybe
yeah.
it'll clean that up.
I'll tell you,
But
like I don't know what to say. I mean, it changed my life. People that know me see me now downtown or out cruising around. They're like, "Wow, man, what a difference!" The inflammation's gone from here. It's gone from here. It's gone from my legs. I don't have an acre of pain.
you might have to tell this stuff to my mom. Let me get your number.
Hey, you know what I mean? Like there's many people that are that age. I mean, like for
No,
your
she's in
mom,
her 80s.
yeah, for your mom. Well, we have a lady here that's in.
But my knee, shoulder, I got arthritis, I
Oh,
got tennis elbow, all kinds of stuff.
just
Lower
gotta
back.
you just gotta get on these peptides, man. Like do your research, Barry. That's what I can tell you. Like there's the guy that got everybody aware of this was a scientist out of the United States back in the Cold War, went to Russia because there was a scientist over there printed a few things about these amino acids and these peptides in the medical journals. But hey, we're not going to recognize that in Canada and the United States because Big Pharma is paying for my holidays and my trips, and they're paying for my house and my car. So I'm not going to tell the whole country about this. So they only recognize like uh, Britain, Israel, and then the doctors in the United States or Canada. Well, oh well, we better have a look at this. But coming out of Russia,
Right,
they did.
right.
So I mean, it's like Dave said, these products were done on the market for the Russian people
Where are
40
they
years
made?
ago.
Where are they made? Do you know?
Russia. Oh, where they're made now, they're made in the United States, right?
Right, right, right. I
But I
wonder
mean,
what state.
In Russia, what they're available in the stores. They're free with your groceries. Here, do yourself a favor. Simple. Google up people walking around in St. Petersburg, Russia. See if you will see another shaped person or somebody that looks like their skin is
Eh,
falling off. Or I mean, the people over there they're healthy. I mean, I'm 66 years old and I've never seen a fat Russian.
they're
Never.
big. They're
Well,
strong.
they're big, they're strong, and they're in shape. And I'll tell you,
Yeah, I
they
was
don't have
dating
the
one.
disease, and they don't have the cancers and the disease that we got in this country.
Yeah,
Bar
well,
none.
it's the food. Not a bad. Who knows what we're eating here?
Exactly.
Uh, and what they put in the soil. Uh, to keep the bugs away. That's killing us. The vegetables to make our vegetables look pretty
Well, that's
instead
what's
of
wrong with a lot of
organic.
kids. They're not eating enough dirt these days like we did when we grew up. You know what I mean?
Right, right. And well, the dirt's no good. It's been used
We
too many
build up our
times.
immune systems.
Right, right. What's your number?
It's 780
Yeah,
0632.
all right. I'll text you mine. But thank you.
You betcha, Barry.
Appreciate. I might have to put my mom on the phone with you for a minute.
Not a problem. Not a problem, brother. I'm available
Appreciate
anytime.
appreciate it. You're in
I'm retired.
Canada?
I'm in northern Canada in the tar sands in Alberta.
My partner's up in Canada. I can't even remember what part of Canada. Toronto, I'm thinking.
Oh, okay.
There's not many people in his town.
Well, you've heard of
Uh,
the dirty oil from the tar sands coming out of Canada. I'm right in the
no.
middle of
Oh,
it.
really? That's not good. And I'm sure you're breathing in something no good for you there.
Silicate,
Tar sands? Yeah.
silicate, silicate sand.
See, well, the company needs to make nostril filters. Put
You need to
put
do
the fil
something.
like cigarette filters
There you go.
with some
Yeah.
peptides in them.
Well, sounds good there, Barry. I
All
better get
right.
running here, brother. You take care and look forward to hearing from you.
All right, me too. You take care.
Okay.
Take care.
Bye bye.
Have a good one.